So maybe we can talk a little bit more now about Rathwa tangible and intangible cultural heritage. Could you give us some examples of how they would identify that?
See, the tangible heritage is very clear. They have a particular way of dressing, which you can identify them in many ways. Those who become a little more modern or westernized or urbanized wear different kinds of clothes, but one of our people, Vasant Bhai, I think you must have met him at the academy. He is in charge of the school. When they get together for these conventions, when they have their leaders talking about this, especially this Rathwa Kori business, they will all come dressed in their own clothes, or they will wear the turban, or they will have some visual identity of their belonging to the community. So dress is, of course, extremely important. Then the way they celebrate their own festivals is very important. That is something which is very visual. The rituals, these are all tangible elements. The fact that many of them have the Pithora painting in their homes, that is important. Their own language is very important. That's the tangible thing. The food, the kind of food they eat, the kind of food they cook at different for different functions in the lifespan. There is birth, and there is marriage, and there is death, and all kinds of things. So what are the foods cooked? They are also of a particular kind. The jewelry they wear is of a particular kind, which identifies them immediately as to who they are among tribal groups. The intangible would be the songs which they sing, the epics which they have. A lot of them have very rich traditions of literature, oral literature, which has been handed down for over generations, over centuries. Things get added in, things get left out. And Mike, this is something which even I found it very difficult to believe. But I was talking to one of these Rathwa men who recently did his PhD in something or the other, whatever it was. But he was researching on their epics, and he was telling me that now there are only four very old people who can recite some of them. And he was trying to find out from me whether Bhasha can get some kind of funding to be able to document that. So I said, yes, we can help you. But he said, see, the problem is that I said, send me a proposal, which is a very mainstream way of talking. You send me a proposal, then we'll see how we can do it. There has to be a timeline, there has to be this, that, and the other. He said that, I'm sorry, I can't give you a timeline. I said, why not? He says, see, these people, it's only at particular times in the year when they are supposed to be able to recite that whole epic. It is only at that time they remember the whole thing. So supposing I, as a researcher, go to them and tell them, why don't you start, reciting? They will not. They just can't remember it.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah. But if it is a particular day or in a particular month, at a particular time when they are supposed to say it, that is when they will say it. And that is when I have to do my work. I don't know when that is.
Wow.
I can't give you a framework, like that put me in a fix, because I said, well, how can I get you any funding to be able to do that? I said, anyway, try to do it. I'll get you funding afterwards. At least you've done something. And I'll definitely do that. But this is the way things work, because I think they live a kind of imaginative life, which is a kind of life we can't really think of, in the way we have been brought up. What I to you about the fact that they will not have surplus. They do not believe in having a lot of money in the bank. That is not their sense of economy.
And what Oh, there's so much to what you're saying. um, uh, let let me go with that first, and then go back to the epic recitations, which is amazing. So, with the surplus, how culturally can you or they justify not having surplus? What sense does that make in the mind of a Rathwa person?
I really have no idea. I will I will I will tell you something which was narrated to me by Dr. Devi, and you make what you can out of it, but it is such a strange story. He was This was a time when the Adivasi Academy was still being built. He was on his way from Baroda to Chota Udaipur, and he must have stopped somewhere in on the way to have a cup of tea or something of that sort, which we always do. So this was very close to Tejgarh, okay? And he was sitting there, and one of these elderly Rathwa men came and sat next to him to have a cup of tea, okay? And that man then pointed to his watch. Dr. Devi was wearing a watch on his left hand. And he said, "What is that?" So he said, "This is a watch." So he says, "What does it do?" So he says, "It tells me the time." So he says, "What do you mean by time?" So he says, "It tells me it is like 9 o'clock just now, and I have to reach Tejgarh by 10 o'clock. So I am able to understand that from here, Tejgarh is about 20 minutes away. So I can enjoy my cup of tea for maybe 10 or 15 more minutes before I get into the car and travel." So he says, so he tells you that. But why do you, so he said, "Why do you need to get to Tejgarh at 10 o'clock?" So he said, "Because I'm meeting somebody there." He says, "Yeah, but that guy will wait. How does it matter? You enjoy your cup of tea and you carry on." Then he says that, okay. Also, then he said that, don't you have eyes?" That's what he asked him. So he said, "Of course I have eyes." And he said, "You just look up in the sky, and you know that when the sun is right above your head, that's the time to, sit quietly and have lunch somewhere, you know, and take rest and then start working again. You don't need a watch to tell you all that. And when the sun sets, that's the time to get home and to rest." So, so Dr. Devi laughed and he said, "Yes, I think there is some sense in what you say." And then this man showed him a large silver bangle which he was wearing on his hand, which all of them wear. If you remember, any of those, all those guys wear a huge silver bangle on their hands. It almost weighs 500 grams of silver, pure silver. Okay. So he says, "You're wearing this watch. I'm wearing this. If does this watch ever need repairs? Does it ever stop?" So Dr. Devi said, "Yes, it does. There is a battery." So he says, "Then when do you have to go and buy the battery every now and then?" So he says, "Yes, I have to buy the battery every now." He says, "Then why are you wasting your money over such stupid things? You go and buy silver." Every time you need money, all I have to do is to go and mortgage this, pawn this somewhere. I get the money I want. I earn the money back. I go and collect what I have back.
Okay, yeah.
I
That's
would, Mike, I would just like to add here.
Yeah.
See, the whole sense of not accumulating money or any other material. It is not that they are not materialistic, but what we realize over the years is that they have a very close affinity with nature. So they take from nature as much as their need is. They do not exploit it. So there is a difference. So they live in a kind of non-accumulative way of life. So they do store grains and things in their house. It's not that, but it's all, to a large extent, it's need based, and also it's a collective way of life. So Like if somebody in the village does not have food, others will help. It's not an individualistic way of life where each one is thinking or living by himself or herself. So there are collective ways where people can survive in a tribal society. At least they continue to do so even now. As things change, one doesn't know what will happen in decades to come.
Right.
So I think that could be one reason for their non-accumulation, uh, non-accumulative way of life and philosophy in a way.
Mm. That makes sense because you come from a tradition where you help each other out in times of need. Someone has something that another person doesn't have, and so they share. And then also you can depend on the natural world to provide what you need at given times. So why accumulate more than you need or more than you might need and sell it or accumulate it to have wealth and power over someone else or something like that? It just doesn't make sense culturally.
Yeah, so and it's also they do not exploit nature. That is one thing which is there across tribal societies. And also when you're talking of the heritage, I would like to include architecture, their belief systems, and also their knowledge systems. They're all part of their cultural heritage.